Hey guys, sorry about this. This is kind of like a part two, But I'm learning. I guess I'm getting a big refresher from Romans 12, and it's just teaching you, like, as a Christian, you learn, you gotta learn to, like, practice your faith, And part of that practice is learning to love the siblings of the faith, I think that's just because I'm thinking on the spot. So one of the things I've been learning is just, like, the gifts you have, there's in the Christian faith, you are giving gifts. You are given things that are helpful in the church body. We call it the body, but it's like the church membership, And we call it the body because it's the collective where there's different people that got different tricks, and I don't call them tricks, but like different gifts we have. And it's just like the differences in your body, like your nervous system or your brain. But they say, like, Christ is the head, so he's the head, And even then, there's like the system that involves us, Christ, and God. But in terms of this analogy, is essentially we are the church collective, and we follow Christ, and Christ follows God. And you can think about the Godhead and Trinity. That's going to be a whole separate topic that, if you're interested, just send me a comment and I'll try to explain that myself. But just thinking about that, like, if there's a gift you have, if you're in the church body, you're a believer in Jesus Christ, who, of course, died for your sins and rose up on the third day. So therefore, he's conquered the sting of death, the power of death. I'm sorry, the power of sin. The power of sin, the power of waywardness, the inclination to stray away from God, the power of that is death. If you believe that, just like I would believe history, if I believe George Washington exists, and yet I have a painting of him, that's something I believe in faith. I believe in George Washington. I believe, okay, fine, George Washington has what do you call it? Letters. If I believe that, then I can just as much as believe in Jesus. What he did, like, it doesn't really require much other effort other than that, and then practicing the gifts you get and trying to show a connection with the family of God. Now, yes, there aren't always good people in the family of God, and that's something you have to really suss out and figure out, like, hey, are they genuine? Because the calls of Christianity are to be genuinely affectionate. But it's tough because we deal with people, and again, it's really tough because as Christians, we're given the call. We're not given a option. And Christianity, especially here in America, can be very pretentious sometimes. You can have people who really want what everybody else wants, and outside the church, we call it outside the church, the world. There tends to be that too. But I guess just my encouragement is just to, whatever gift you are good at, and you can tell what your gifts are, man. What's really something that'll pop out, because you'll tell. Other people will be able to notice it. Other people will be like, oh, hey, that's really good. Think you can know how to do. You can do. And do that, But part of this journey is to truly be yourself. And if you have some issues that's like childhood issues, you got to unpack that stuff. Because some of that stuff, they say, don't let the devil have a foothold. In my opinion, this is not my fact or expert opinion or professional opinion. I don't have any of those. I just have my opinion. The devil's footholds are sometimes, in my opinion, trauma related. It's because trauma really makes you do opposite things. You want love, trauma might make you push away from love. You want affection, the trauma might make you push away from affection. You want acceptance, trauma might have you do some anti-personal stuff to push people away from you. So, like pain, childhood pain, that time when you're really young and vulnerable and very needy, and for good reason you're needy, because you're young and vulnerable and you can't really operate a lot, can't really do a lot as a child. So you need your parents, and when people blow it, people hurt you, that hurts. That stuff really goes very far in hurting you. So you gotta fix those things. In my opinion, those devil footholds the devil bring can come from people who are probably hurt themselves. It's so weird. Don't ask me how it happens. But there's a tendency of hurt people Dang, I'm sorry, I'm moving a little too fast. Hurt people hurting people. This reminds me of the movie The Shack. Now, while it's not theologically as sound as I would like it, it still has a lot of great points. And sometimes, dude, your abuser might have been abused itself. I just watched this Netflix series called Baby Reindeer, and that dude was abused. And for some reason, he said something that was very was reminiscent of something even that I could kind of identify with. And he said, like, yo, when you have trauma, you become like a post-it board, a sticky post-it board, or like you essentially draw in hurt people. You essentially draw in weirdos. And I don't mean to say it like you did, but you do become a magnet for people who suss out people with vulnerabilities and weaknesses. You become a bit too I think overly empathic of people who have dysfunction. Now, some of us, we wonder, like, man, why I'm always attracting the same people? Maybe it's because you got some stuff and people are sussing it out themselves. Sorry, when I say suss out, I mean just like searching, figuring out, stuff like that. So yeah, you have to keep that in mind and be like, okay, well, maybe there's some stuff I gotta unpack. Because if you don't unpack that baggage, those footholds, in my opinion, they're gonna get worse. They're gonna just chain into other things that'll make your life dysfunctional, harmful, hurt, and pain. I seen this thing from Rachel Ryland. It's called "Get Me Out of Here." It was a book I was supposed to read in college. I never did, but I actually did at work during those dry times where there wasn't so much work at a specific period, a specific section of my job. But pretty much, like, I read it, and it was a very powerful book, and it was a long journey. It was like, I think she took 2 years, but she had some heavy stuff that she had to unpack. And it's possible. It's really possible, but you really have to be willing to do the work. And I myself have had my stuff, and I've had to unpack it and do the work. I've had to do the work. I've had to sit here and see some painful stuff. And yes, your mind is going to try to protect you by kind of just dulling stuff out, having you forget stuff, having it hard to access. But eventually, you're going to have to put yourself in a safe space so you can search deep within and find those things. Because it's important. It's really important. And you have to figure those things out. Your body and your mind is meant to keep you safe. So if you have a traumatic experience, like a car crash or something, your body's going to have you freak out to a similar issue. It's part of this PTSD. If you have stuff that's like an issue with a person, your body might freak out and get into defense, get a little anxious around a person that looks like your abuser. So these things are all there, but just because your body is attempting to save you doesn't mean it's always right. So you have to suss that out, figure it out, differentiate between what's really safe, what's truly safe, and what's really not safe, and unpack all those false narratives that you developed during those times when you got hurt. So, but back to the gifts part. In terms of the gifts are super important because they help out the body of the church. And I believe in Romans 14, they talk about spiritual gifts. And those things are helpful at drawing non-believing people to the church. And I know folks are like, man, I don't want to believe because, again, in terms of, I was real skeptical myself. I was really trying to control God and stuff like that. And then I had like sporadically God encounters. And they opened my eyes to be like, oh. And that I mentioned in like some older videos that like when God opened your eyes, it's a difference. You can tell when it's like not is you fabricating stuff, is you trying to make up stuff, is you trying to get in your own way. And then you notice that there's things as God, because it's absent of you, it's absent of things, And even then you could sit here and play yourself and go back into the same old thinking, trying to, I don't know. My guess would be take the reins from God, but I really don't know why people do that. I think it's just the nature of human beings to try to mess up a situation because it's familiar. But that's my guess, my non-professional guess. But yeah, when you get all your stuff cleared up, then I think God can fully use you. I mean, God's still technically using you now, just regardless of your circumstances. But God can definitely use you when you clear out all that baggage. Because if you don't clear all that baggage and God gives you something that's great, how are you going to take care of it? If you have issues and boundary issues or bondage issues, how are you going to truly love? Like, let's say God gives you a spouse, presents you a spouse, and those pheromones hit, this person's a lot of things that you wanted. Let's say you get all that, and yet you didn't clear out all that abusive stuff that happened to you, that trauma that happened to you, those disorders that happened to you, those footholds that's still on you. You didn't decide to let that stuff go. So when God gives you something, now it's going to be a problem. You say, this is what I want. But the thing is God is probably trying to encourage you to dig and let go of all that stuff. But you were too scared and you couldn't really trust. God encourages people to search for wisdom. Search for the wisdom and counsel. So what does that mean? Smart people, smarter than you. Who's smarter than you? Therapists, professionals, counselors. These people are taught with wisdom. So I don't want to hear this stuff about don't go to a therapist because that's not godly. It's wisdom. If it's all wisdom comes from God, and which means if it works, it's wisdom. So listen to people who are smarter than you. Stop being arrogant. Stop thinking that because you're spiritual, because you're saved, that you don't need to listen to anybody. That's arrogance. So yeah, drop these. I guess that's it, man. That's it.